Today, we are looking at two of the best Zaryas in North America playing against each other in OWCS lower bracket semifinals. Winner goes to Stockholm, Worlds, loser goes home. So there's three good things that these Zaryas can teach us, as well as potentially do a little bit better themselves. The first thing is this right here. By going around the tank, in this case it was a true flank, and other times you just walk past the tank, you can melt squishies very, very, very quickly. Yes, there was a Suzu involved here. They're still dead. Did we have some crossfire happening from our team like Exton here? Sure. But this is very good. Squishies melt very fast. Do this on Zarya. This is amazing when you're medium and high energy like this. So that is fantastic. No problem. That's much better than shooting at the tank. This, however, is bad, and I mean really bad. What I see here is a reload animation happening while Zeb is at 44 ammo. This 44 ammo could have been 3/4 of Lep's life. Lep would really feel the pressure and pop amp and skate away for their life. That's really important. That would decrease the pressure from the enemy team as the Lucio is basically exiting the fight, hugely decreasing what they do. That would be very good. Would Hawk do some damage to you and start lowering your health bar while that happened? Yes, but this is better, just like killing that Kiriko is better than shooting at the tank. This reload basically gives up our opportunity to do that, which is not a terribly good thing. I apologize. Let's go like that. It also just gives up time that could have been, this is equivalent in time to basically us throwing a right click like that one right there. Maybe a right click and a half. We're now going to zap Hawk. This bubble, unfortunately, is the third thing that we're going to go over today, concept-wise, and it's not very good either. We're already 97 energy. We still have enough health. If we gave up, half health before this bubble went off, that'd be good. This bubble really has a couple things going against it. First off, we've kited ourselves to not the main part of the fight. We closed the angle on a lot of the enemies. Good on Sugar Free for wrapping here to still get their pressure in, but we've closed the angle on a lot of enemies. Zarya's in the middle of a reload, so we're not taking damage yet. We're not actively taking damage when we pop this bubble. We still have a little bit of health to give. We don't have to bubble quite yet, though we'd want to bubble relatively soon, like once Hawk starts shooting us. But lastly, we already have 97 energy. If we can delay this bubble a little bit more, it's actually just going to be a slight damage increase for us because we'll have ticked down to like 95 energy sort of thing. And it's a little bit back up there. That one's not a huge deal in this case, but in other cases it would matter. The bigger deal here is we're bubbling while Hawk is reloading. We're bubbling while we've closed the sight line on a bunch of enemies. And actually, as using this bubble early like this potentially creates an opportunity for Sugar Free to feel comfortable pulse bombing us. When Sugar Free can't pull the trigger on that until, he's seen this second bubble come out, just as an example. That ends up sort of happening. Don't actually care too much about the pulse bomb there. Zeb goes down. We saw a bad reload there. We saw a good kill on the squishy. We saw a bubble that was too early. How does this look from Hawk's perspective? Let's take a quick look. So going into this fight, we're trying to work the squishy. That's good. No problem. We're low energy coming into this fight. No one's shooting at us, so we can't do anything with this bubble. And now we can bubble that. We see the right click coming, but we're also rounding a corner into this Zarya. We're pretty confident we're taking damage. Yes, we're high health when we pop this bubble, but we, on our side of Zarya, are still in the phase of the fight where we're still needing to gather energy. So we're using this bubble less to protect our health, which we'd prefer to do once our health gets a little bit lower, and more just for the energy because we need the energy early in the fight to just not get outvalued. So a little bit better what we see there. We'd have liked to see sticking to Z who TP'd in there. As you can see, Z is over there. We'd also like to not do this reload. This reload should be a right click on Z. But that's okay. Both of these players have room to do things a little bit better, but they do things very well. So let's move on to another fight here. Okay, and we'll look at this. This is just a pre-spam. We can see Zeb is high energy.
Thank you.
And this is a very standard first bubble here. We are bubbling our Cassidy as they round the corner. That is perfectly acceptable, just like bubbling our Tracer who double blinks into pops to try to force Suzu, for example, could be perfectly reasonable. This is good. We're at 100 energy. That popped us up from 70 or whatever to 100. We're pretty happy. Our health is still totally fine. We've got 85% or so health. Why did we pop our second bubble? We had 85 or so percent health, and we already had 100 energy, and we popped our second bubble. This is bad. This lets the enemy team have permission to do things like boop us off the stairs, pulse bomb us like we talked about last time, things like that they were sort of waiting to see that for. It also is, not giving us the additional 5, 6, 7 energy it might if we could delay it a little bit and keep our damage a little bit higher. That's a little more minor in this case, but it's something. You want to optimize these things. So that's not really all that amazing. We're down here. We get the squishy. We'll trade out. Okay, fine. Hawk drives this a little bit better. We see this here. No problem. Have to reload there. That's forced by us running out of ammo. We pop our first bubble. Sure, we had 2 bubbles in high energy, just like Zeb did. Zeb used their first bubble on X10, totally reasonably. We're using our first bubble at about 60% here, right as we've run out of shield health. It's going to pop us back up to 100 energy instantly, so we'll get 12 energy for that. No problem. Second bubble, a little bit worse there. You can see our health. Unsurprisingly, this is another reason that you like to delay your bubbles until you're missing some health. You can get healed. Your bubbles might not last all that long, but you can get healed under your bubble and regain some of your health there. That happened in this case. Hawk immediately popped their second bubble, and it really wasn't necessary here. Hawk had been healed some. Was this bubble still going to have to come like a second and a half later? Yeah, it was, but even that, delaying the opponent from being able to pull their trigger on a win button, like a pulse bomb, like a booping you off the stairs sort of thing, that does matter, and it could net you, an extra 2 energy, whatever the case is here. So, not a huge difference here. Both have 1 good bubble, both have a second bubble that could use a little bit of improvement. But, we want to optimize, especially at this OWCS level, and you guys want to for sure optimize because your first bubbles, don't even look as good as theirs did in this fight. Let's go ahead and move on to one final fight that we care about. That'll be what's effectively the last fight of the map here. Yeah, this will work.
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, so Zeb has 100 energy and 1 bubble. 100 energy and 1 bubble. Okay, 100 energy and 2 bubbles. We're using a bubble with half health to try to semi-push up, and then we don't like it and leave. Okay, so that bubble took us from 90 to 100. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're bubbling to sort of push. We're bubbling to push while we have 85%, 90% health. We could really push with this health and then bubble later, and we'd want to push up and try to do some squishy damage and then bubble and maybe even back up with our bubble. Maybe push up, try to get the kill with our health, push up, try to get most of the, force of the recall with our health, force of the blink with our health, and then bubble and back up sort of thing, knowing that that bubble's going to help us get out. That's what we'd like to do. Could we get kidnapped by their Zarya, something like that? Potentially, but it's really not that dangerous. Okay, no problem. So, fine. So, we're back at, 95 energy and 1 bubble. 90 energy and a bubble. Okay, we use a bubble in a... Again, we're at, 85, 90% health. We're fine. 85% health, and our bubble got us 10 energy. And what we're really doing here is we're constantly neutering our ability to actually go, hey, I have 2 bubbles and 90 energy, or hey, I have a bubble, 90 energy, and 3/4 of the way to the next one. Let me walk up and zap Chronic, for example, and go, hey, I'm going to try to kill Chronic, or force the Suzu to come out, or force Chronic to roll away and then lick his wounds and not be shooting at my team. And, as I'm doing that, I get him most of the way down, I bubble, and then I back up sort of thing. Or I bubble and maybe stay in and try to finish him, and then bubble the second time and get out sort of thing. Because, my team's going to push if I'm doing that real thing there. That's what we really want to do with our bubbles once we have energy. We don't want to just kind of yo-yo between 90 and 100 energy with our bubbles, because we are taking away our future ability to make a play. And we know Orisa knows this because those of you that watched or not Orisa, that Zeb knows this because those of you that watched the last video about Orisa knows that the way Zeb plays Orisa, for example, is, hey, use the first spear spin cooldown, use the first fortify, sort of spread those out, absorb stuff while using those. You throw some spears, get some cooldowns like a Suzu out, and then maybe the second time these come up, or maybe the second and a half time these come up, use them to actually go in and make a play. Zarya can do much the same thing. Now, you might have a little bit more of an exit strategy on Zarya, because you making a play on Zarya can be really a little bit shallower, because your dangerous range is still so good there, but it still is that concept. The first bubble can be for your cast rounding the corner, for your tracer going in. Your second bubble, when after you're dead sort of thing, your second bubble could be, hey, I'm absorbing energy on me that I'm sort of pressuring out of you by left-clicking, by doing right-clicks, by doing sort of these shallow bubbles. These bubbles that Zeb was doing at 90 energy would be fine if Zeb was at 40 energy, for example. Wasn't really what happened here. And now, Zeb will go try to make a play, hopefully on a squishy over here. Doesn't work out. We were too neutered when this happened. We'd spent our bubbles sort of doing nothing. We'd really just given Hawk time to build up his graph. So let's go back to, I don't know, roughly the same time here. And that's going to look something like, that'll work. This is roughly the same time that we started watching Zeb at. We're at 2 bubbles and 90 energy. No problem. Cool. Okay. Still got 90 energy. Okay. That bubble's for our Tracer to do something. It's legitimate, barely. Okay, trying to melt a squishy. Great. Doing this. Basically at 2 energy, 2 bubbles and 100 energy again. Okay. We have 2 bubbles. We have 2 bubbles and 100 energy. Please go make a play on a squishy. Now, we're not going to because we're playing to get our grab before Zeb gets their grab, but usually that's what you'd be looking to do. And now because the gates come out, we'll say, okay, I'm going to force this. I'd like to go past Zeb and get these squishies. I really would. Hawk's not going to because Hawk really just wants to get this grab and then go like that. So, it wasn't like hugely better for Hawk because Hawk was playing to get the grab because Hawk knew Hawk had the first grab here almost certainly, and because Hawk was on defense and was like, oh, I don't need to make as much of a risk to go make a play like that. But you do see that Hawk was not just spending bubbles and sort of leaving themselves in cooldown deficit to bounce between 90 and 100 energy. You get way more than 10 energy from a well-used bubble, so Hawk was hoarding the bubbles a little bit more to have the ability to make a play once they got their grab there. Now, that's good. That was the last fight that we really wanted to go through. Let's just, pick at these players a tiny bit more because that's what we do. That is our job. So we will look at Zeb here. Zeb's here. Zeb's pushing in, pushing past the tank. We love it. No problem. Okay, that hurts, but we know that we're getting the beat. Cool. And we get that done. Fantastic. Oh, that's a reload with 19 ammo. Are there people on our screen that we could be shooting at? Yeah. Could be a right click on Chronic. Should be a left click on Sugar Free. Could be, left click on Hawk and then right click once we get a little lower on ammo. All of those would be totally valid options right now, but instead we're reloading. That's unfortunate. We don't like that. But hey, not a big deal. Surely Hawk is going to do better for us. Surely. Got some pressure out there. Shooting at Zeb here, no problem. There's a bubble on X10. Could probably turn around and bubble and shoot at X10 now, and that would be better, except the beat comes in. We're shooting at a tank during beat. That's generally pretty reasonable. We'll do this, no problem. Cool. Put some more into Zeb. Got it done. Cool. Zeb is dead. Oh, there's Zombie. So we didn't reload. We're going to see Zombie and throw left click. Okay, fine with me. Now we're going to close the angle and get booped out. And oh, wait a second. We were reloading with people on our screen. Are there people we should be shooting at right now? Did we get a little jostled by the boop? Sure, but back here was not safe. As you can see, there are now 3 people back here. So this wasn't a terribly great reload from Hawk. Is Hawk almost certainly going to die here? Yes, but this could be some beam damage into these guys. This could be a right click on these stacked people here. Force another blink if Zombie even has it. Get some damage on one or both of them. This is pressure, and in a fight that is definitely not decided, this fight is both people have people have been lost on both sides. Huck is going to go down, sure, but like if you can get more damage done first, that may allow CJ Sugar Free to trade out sort of thing and still win this fight. So it's potentially pretty costly here to do this reload and then sort of be delayed and not really get anything done because we didn't effectively do that before our reload there. And then we can look at one final fight and we will truly be done here. So let's go like this. Okay, Zeb, you're bubbling your Cassidy rounding the corner. We've talked about that. You bubble Natsuki because they're in danger. The plan, I'm sure, was to have a second bubble for your Cassidy. We don't. Okay, no problem. Oh, that's a reload while we're pushing with Cass. Why are we reloading while pushing with Cass? That's weird. Okay. Okay, I have 10 ammo, and there's people on my screen. Why am I reloading? I know we started the reload when we were looking this way, but, like, that's just an error. Turn speed is infinite in Overwatch. That's just an error on our part to have been looking this way. We can turn instantly and throw this right click at them. This is not a safe or good reload. We have ammo left. That's another right click. Or, you know, a little bit of left click, then a right click. Whatever. Okay, no big deal. Cool. We're getting pushed. We do this. This one's a little bit better, where, okay, we tried to take cover. We truly thought we were doing this, whatever, but it's still not great. That really should have just been another right click than a reload here. Hey, not the end of the world. So again, the three things we want to think about coming out of this are going to be, you want to get on the squishies. If you get on the squishies, they die, you force their resources a lot faster, and or they sort of exit the fight more quickly. That is amazing. That is how you win. Try to get your beam off of the opposing tank and onto squishies when you can. The second thing we would get into here is reloads. I know no one wants to hear it. It's not fun. It's not sexy, but reloads absolutely matter. Every reload you do decreases the pressure on the enemy team. It sort of gives them extra time to recover from sort of that tradey stuff that has been happening. Don't mix in extra reloads. Think of those as extra right clicks. If you do, 5, 10, 15 reloads over the course of a round, which you could be looking at that here, that's a lot of pressure that was let up on the enemy team there. We especially see that in some of these where, hey, that could have been a tradey fight that maybe went the other way in the last fight we looked at. That could have been an extra 100 damage here, an extra 75 damage there. That stuff really adds up. And then the last thing we're going to talk about, or we did talk about rather, is the bubbles. We've talked about how to use the sort of beginning of your life bubbles to initially get up to a threatening level. On your DPS are good, like your Tracer diving in there, like your Cassidy rounding a corner. That can be a good way to get energy. Much harder to do with the Tracer, but certainly doable in a practiced environment. You can bubble yourself in the poke phase. You can, like we saw at the end of the map where Zeb was doing, if he'd been doing those bubbles at 40 energy, that would have been totally fine. But at 90 energy, that's not so good. Once you get up to like 70 energy, 90 energy, you really do want to be using your bubbles as a way to walk, use the fact that you have them to protect yourself, getting out, use them, walk up, you spend your health a little bit, spend the bubble to protect, and then sort of walk yourself out. You could worry about, oh, a tank's going to block me and trap me. Yeah, that's a thing that can happen, but you potentially have two bubbles, and if they've moved in to walk and trap you, why was your team not ready to somewhat move during your push there? And you really do, as you walk up to get that squishy, like, oh, the tank is kidnapping me, but the Kiriko's dead. But the Cassidy's dead. Their tank kidnapping me doesn't matter. Oh, but they bubbled their Cassidy that I moved up to threaten. Cool. They bubbled their Cassidy, so I self-bubble, back up, and shoot at the Zarya who, used a bubble on Cassidy. And if I force a second bubble, fantastic. If I don't, that's great. We're just trading damage. That doesn't really matter. I'm bubbled. The Cassidy is bubbled. Whatever sort of thing. And if they mess up and bubble the Lucio behind the Cassidy or something, the Cassidy's dead. Which, okay, they're probably not going to make a ton of mistakes, but these mistakes can happen. It's much easier to do self-bubbles. It's much easier to know you're bubbled when it's a self-bubble and you don't immediately have to back up. You will frequently find you're, like, bubbling a cast that's already rolling behind cover and sort of doesn't make good use of the bubble. Just as an example, or Lucio that's darting away doesn't make good use of the bubble, whatever the case is there. So these are the three things you really want to have here. I guess I would include in bubbles. You want to bubble sort of later if you have high energy. energy because, yes, it'll restore a little bit more energy for you, but it also denies the opponents from being able to make their winning conditions, like a pulse bomb, like a boop off high ground, like a high noon, whatever, because you still have that bubble, even if you only have 40% health, 50% health, whereas if you bubble at like 80% health when you had 100 energy, that's not helping you. That's just sort of giving the other team permission to make their plays earlier. It also means you're going to, not be able to benefit from potentially getting healed under your bubble quite as much as you could if you had lower health. Couple things like that. It's better to do later if you can. But that's going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.